Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Media, actually, not Let's Build Daily. Going a little bit bigger and wanted to take a moment to introduce you to what this all means, to me, especially, and to the feedback that I've received from others, and what I think we can accomplish together. So first and foremost, I just want to thank everybody, for their feedback throughout this process after starting, March 18th. A lot of great feedback, a lot of great participation from people willing to just jump on live, with less preparation than normal. But ultimately, showing that the preparation is the knowledge, that a lot of us have. And that if we decide to share that knowledge and we think we can help one person, find some value out of that knowledge sharing activity, that's going to be the path to closing this huge gap that we have right now in terms of the days of HubSpot, being a point solution, a marketing, tool, to now a customer platform, and the speed at which they evolved. So that's where it started. Now, scaling, expanding, we need a lot of people involved in, fighting this battle. And so I'll be sharing some stuff. And I'll just start with this newsletter that I just published yesterday as a just a starting point to start to highlight, what we're trying to accomplish. It's very hard for me to stay, in the black and white. This is ABC without going off strategy tangents and the why. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. But I would love feedback to share, like, is that confusing, or, is it hard to follow, or, anything like that? Because I do want to get better. I think I've gotten a lot better since I've started, on March 18th. But so this, one of the things we're going to start doing, in a nutshell, is try to get better at distribution and making it easier to, come back to the content. LinkedIn newsletters is going to be one of those mechanisms. And still deciding on how much story we're going to tell. Like, maybe this one just needs to be, a recap of the week, plus look at what's coming the current next week. Not just from people, let's say under the Let's Build Media umbrella, but also like Hugs, anybody sharing HubSpot knowledge. One of the common things we hear is that we're both overwhelmed with HubSpot knowledge resources, both from places like HubSpot Academy, YouTube, LinkedIn every day, all these communities. But there's also a gap in that there's not enough knowledge in a lot of places, like as it relates to seeing HubSpot as a customer platform, as it relates to the things that are newest, like, Commerce Hub, Operations Hub, even custom objects, even. Some of these are 3-year-old things, and people still aren't using them effectively, if at all. Right. So to me, that tells me there's not necessarily a subject matter expertise lack. It's the way that we are delivering that subject matter expertise. And a great example is when a new update happens and people just, copy and paste the update sidebar from the product updates area. Like, we need you. We need you to tell us what it means. Your spin based on your specific experience. That's the way that we're all different. That's how you create authenticity. And if you really want people, if you really want to have an impact and, people to connect with your content and actually get them to pay attention, we need a little bit of you in there. And that's one of the things, one of the feedback like themes that I've gotten is that this commitment to daily, like, and way more often than we've ever considered, this commitment to live, whether it's building live or talking strategy live, just creates authentic content when you have, people with expertise chatting about complex issues, right? So it's a different style of content, not meant to, replace the academy and that team, what they're doing, but definitely to augment a lot of what's out there already. Because we know we've been like, if you're using HubSpot, it's very rare. I mean, in the best HubSpot portals, right? And we keep creating things like process rules, hoping for the day that every time we use HubSpot, it's 1, 2, 3 done, right? Instead of saying, okay, we know sometimes it can be 1, 2, 3, sometimes it can be 1, 5, 10, sometimes it can be 10, 5, 1, right? As we do it, as the team builds out, the product to support, the in and out flow of customer journey. A great example is, I talk to people about, I love Commerce Hub. I think it's a huge opportunity. Payment links. When you click on the created deal, when they use the link, right? You only do that because you're shortcutting the sales management process, right? And we need a deal to report, right? So that's an example of like 10, 5, 1, right? If we're supposed to create a deal first. So see, I did it. This is how I just, get lost in strategy. We're going to go through this newsletter. And this is also why I'm just, gathering forces to fight this battle, because I know I have a specific way that I like to talk about this stuff, get lost in the theory and the strategy. But I know there's lots of, others out there with lots of expertise. It's going to require the whole HubSpot village, to get this job done. This job bridging the knowledge and skills gap that is ginormous in the HubSpot ecosystem right now between all the stakeholders, HubSpotters themselves. Is anybody in the ecosystem as a HubSpotter, or just employees of HubSpotters? Let me know what the official definition of a HubSpotter is there. So, newsletter last week. So we're getting more and more people involved. We had a great lineup last week. I'm not going to go through each show. Just want to show you what we're trying to accomplish, because if all you have is the LinkedIn feed, then it's very hard to keep track of all of what's available to you, which is why when I say follow, the Let's Build Media page, because you're unable to find the education you need, or you're not able to educate yourself based on the resources you have. So most of the time there's resources that exist to help you, but they're hard to find, right? They're not easy unless you use the exact keywords, and oftentimes it takes getting lucky, right? To see the latest, Kyle Jepsen post. Like, how frustrating is it to like click the follow button and then LinkedIn doesn't tell you about every post that you want to see, right? So I'm using LinkedIn as a way to create content and distribute content, in an easier way for me, knowing that repurposability, like I we have to find other ways to, historically capture that content. And I think Kyle Jepson has done a great job of kind of uh, hitting the cadence first, like focusing on the cadence, like saying, okay, the only way that I'm going to keep up or have a chance at keeping up with product updates is if I start posting things every single day. Right. So that was the first commitment. Then other channels were created, other content devices were created to support, that. And I think he's figured it out. Right. So on March 18th, I said, why are we trying, like, after several conversations, with Mark Hans about HubSpot trying to figure out this, micro learning that they're calling it, with just, in my opinion, too much focus on the short nature of the clips that Kyle's doing, right? The success, I think, comes from the consistency and the cadence, not from the fact that it's a 2-minute video, right? 2 minutes videos help you hit that cadence, but it was hard for me not to respond with every question with just do more of what Kyle's doing, right? So instead of continuing to ask everybody else to do it, this is what I started, right? And after a quarter of doing that, getting more people involved, resonating with a lot more people, and it's going to take, 10 more Kyles on the HubSpot side, 20, 50, 100 Kyles outside of HubSpot to really solve this issue. Like if they're posting, and this is what it comes down to, if they're posting product updates several times a day, and we're trying to match that pace, like 800 in 1 year, that means 800 daily videos, right? And the thing is, we probably have that, but since there's no coordination and everybody's doing it in silos, right? It doesn't have, the same impact. So you get gaps and you get redundancy. And well, I don't think we should shy away from redundancy because that's an important part of consistent communication. I do think we should be much more intentional about the gaps that we are leaving, behind, because that adds to the gap that gets created, and when we have people inside the walls of HubSpot and top partners that are still quoting, ridiculous prices for stuff like client portals because they don't know what CMS can do. They don't have a full grasp of how far the smart CRM has come and what's possible. That's a problem. That's a disservice to the HubSpot ecosystem as a whole, to the users, to businesses that desperately need more affordable solutions, right? So that's why I'm targeting this. And I'm lucky, I'll say, to be in a position where I like trying to solve, major problems. And I'm in a position where I can make that a focus, a priority for me if I choose to. And now I constantly have to remind myself I don't work for anybody else right now, like I have in the past. So if I want to do this, then I need to just do it. Right. So that's where we started. And so we had a great, set of shows, the first full lineup in a while. Some regular shows that you're going to see, from Brian Osa, Madeline Donovan, Willem Roos, is getting involved. The first, uh, the first, HubSpot team member to start a regular show after hours. Willem's managers, don't worry. Uh, starting there, and then a double dose on Fridays, with Matthew Ruxton and Danielle Urban. And over time, what I'm doing right now, I hope to, I'm going to make into a regular series about building this media company out. Been very inspired about, what Stuart Malcolm has been doing of sharing, how he's, building his coaching, his connected GTM, uh, niche media model, sharing those details. Like, it's been very insightful. He's going to be on the back in his Wednesday slot next week, and has been great. The few times that he's been on the show, and that's where, so in a nutshell, if I'm still allowed to say that, like, the subject matter expertise, that has never been the limiting factor in my experience when it comes to content creation. I thought it was when I first started learning about the Ask You Answer and how to create content at a level that leads to you being the number one resource in your space, the Wikipedia of your space, as Marcus used to put it. I always thought it was going to be the people, the people who could provide that content. After working in several organizations, I quickly understood it is not the limiting factor. The limiting factor is 100% the process. Getting that subject matter expertise, that insight into content and distributing it is 100% the limiting factor. And an enlightening conversation that I had with Stuart was talking about media companies and what's the value, and he mentioned distribution, right? And I think, I agree that that's the traditional value of media companies. But if we also note that in order to distribute something, you have to have something to distribute. And when everybody has an issue with content, and I think specifically in the HubSpot ecosystem right now, the catch-22 is when you're used to doing how-tos and on-demand, and you built up YouTube channels, you hit these updates, like this on-demand video content, on-demand training content. When HubSpot is moving at the pace that they are, that stuff quickly comes out of date, gets out of date, right? So what happens is that kind of discourages that content in the first place. And if that's all you're used to doing, you just do less content, right? If you embrace this pace, embrace the pace. Maybe that's a good one. I should write that down. If you embrace the pace and understand that when you create this pace and you have this channel, it's been so nice for me to know that I'm going to come on every day. And if Kyle posts a new video, or, the customer data team has a new update with association labels, I have a place to talk about it. And I have a place to talk about it in a way that I don't have to script. I don't have to figure out what the exact how-to needs to look like. I can just speak to it, talk about the strategy with whoever we're on with. This happened last week, right? With Jonas. The data team, had just created a new data model table overview, version of the overview. And we got to dig into that with Jonas, right? Live, and for the first time for both of us. And we got to give real reactions. So if you're outside the walls of HubSpot, I could tell you product managers, they're loving this stuff. And I've been able to develop several relationships. And it's that kind of, alignment. If we can manage that alignment at scale, we'll actually solve this problem fairly quickly, right? Because just like sales and marketing misalignment, this is HubSpot narrative alignment. The narrative that HubSpot is no longer a point solution. And I'll fight anybody on that. It's just not. So the sooner we can just move on from that past, like the better. That's why we're doing stuff like the customer, platform hug tomorrow. But we need to rally around that narrative. If we do, we will be solving major problems for businesses that they've been dealing with for at least a decade or more. So the week ahead, I think a big part of the problem is that we have all these different places creating content, and understanding where to get it and why to get it there and who's doing it, like, is a part of the issue. Like, we don't have time to vet all these new sources, because we don't have a shortage of people talking about HubSpot, trying to share knowledge about HubSpot. We have a shortage of strategy to do it in a meaningful way that doesn't confuse the hell out of everybody, while they see different best practices everywhere, while they see different, versions of, the product updates everywhere. Got to find a way to align. So we're going to gather, the week ahead. So if anybody is doing some kind of webinar or show, in this case, I leaned on the hugs a lot that are happening this week. I'm sure that'll be a major part of, the week ahead moving forward. So not just about what's happening at Let's Build Media, but any kind of educational content about HubSpot. I think Kyle does a great job of like the random tips and tricks, quick hit videos and stuff like that. So we probably won't do a lot of that in here. And even though I'm a big advocate of, kind of the unprepped stuff, I understand the hugs and webinars. I want to help the ecosystem get value out of all the work that goes into those as well. So we've got yesterday we had a great show with Brian. I wasn't able to catch the Monday morning briefing with Kyle. Today we've got another playbook session with Madeline at Content Hub, version of the admin's hug that I'm excited for today. And this ultimately, like, we've got so many people engaged in this, and this is our challenge as HubSpot educators. Kyle has it easy in that, like, he has access to a bunch of HubSpot resources that nobody else does. His target audience also, like, lives and breathes HubSpot. So it's a lot easier to build audience and make in a weekly show, make sense. George and I are trying a monthly cadence, which I think over time, I have thoughts of weekly and even daily here to try and hit this message. But really looking forward to the Content Hub with Gabe in a little bit. Tomorrow, Kyle gets to join our show and not be a host for once. If you want a little pregame for this, he just did the podcast, the Hub Heroes podcast with George, which reminds me, like, probably making a section for podcasts on here would be great. Saying all this, like, if you have resources or shows or anything that you think deserve a place, or provide valuable education, for HubSpot, please let us know, and we'll include it in the newsletter. Then we've got a New York City hug. This looks like a new one. Unlocking the full potential of HubSpot quotes. Love the topic, right? But new hug. So hopefully we can help, shed some light there. It's at the same time as AI and automation in sales and marketing hug, right? So expect this to happen a lot. And this is, again, we find, a glut of content in one place. How do we help determine, which one we're prioritizing as users? That's where, like, this community, there's so much value in just sharing commentary based content related to this stuff. If you're able to catch the recording, give us the quick and dirty. There's no way we can get to all this content. But these are two, very interesting topics. I'll be very curious. What comes to mind is, lead to close should involve HubSpot quotes. If we're doing it in HubSpot, HubSpot quotes have a tendency to be left out of most conversations relating to deals and sales processes. So it'd be interesting. While these look like they could be similar, they might be 100% different, right? So it'll be interesting to see the outcomes there. And if any of these, speakers want to share in this channel, or, throw it in the comments, what they're going to be talking about, hopefully they can feel free. Got our second session, and these aren't linked because I'm still figuring out the best way to schedule out and plan out at a bigger scale, like LinkedIn Lives. I think there's value in LinkedIn Lives. We don't have to schedule an event. Like, we can just go live, trying to understand, the best way to use this channel in a way it's probably not meant to be used. So that's why you don't see these linked, because they don't exist as events, because every event has to be a post. And we know, I'm still figuring out the best way to, let the algorithm do its job of distribution, while also giving people a heads up. So I do expect there to be like a website page component that we can help drive people to. And then we have the developer hug. If you haven't been to one of these yet, well, they have some fun with code on these shows. But they do it in a way that's super palatable and interesting. And I've learned so much from these guys just about what's available. And this is where, like, you don't have to be a coder, to get value out of a developer hug. But it's important that so if you call yourself, or if you want to be a customer platform strategist or advisor, or somebody that can help others, like, get value out of a full customer platform, you have to at least understand what's possible in HubSpot. And sessions like this developer hug help immensely, because you don't have to be the one developing. But one, you can understand what functionality and what use cases you can actually accomplish. Two, you can understand where you can get the help to do it, or where your users can get the help to do it, right? Sometimes it's just right there in the community. Like, people share code all the time. It'll blow your mind, because that's the kind of thing, that is very helpful in ways that some people get paid a lot of money to do, right? But that's this ecosystem, right? So highly recommend that. Always something to learn there. And they actually go live on YouTube. So it's something, I might test, especially after watching George a couple times go live in like 6 different, channels. I don't know if I have the appetite for that, but we'll see. And then we have Women in Revenue Hug, monthly accountable meetup. Man, there's so much opportunity for just simple get-togethers like this. People helping other people. Love to see this from Islin. And then on Friday we have again our shows with Matthew and Danielle. So was about to say this without reading it, but we are set. Like, this is an incredible week, and I think if we can have a goal to make every week like incredible in terms of just sharing knowledge, there's always something to share. We just need to have some more intentionality, and that doesn't mean like scripting and prep and alignment across the 7 continents. We just have to understand the why, right? And if the goal is truly to help people understand and get value out of HubSpot and the ecosystem, we've got to find new ways, improved ways of getting that job done. So as we think about how we're going to schedule, how we're going to meet the pace, embrace the pace of HubSpot education, find the opportunity, and let's grow. Have a great week, everybody.